Call me a secret formula the way I got that Krabby in my patty. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the Gamers Kids. Today, and only today, we are here with an actual big topic video that I've been wanting to cover about for a while now, which is Sonic. Now, obviously, I talk about Sonic here a bunch, but I wanted to talk about Sonic in the sense of what is the secret formula to a Sonic game? You know, what makes a game beloved, despite, how, critics may feel or a lot of how fans may feel and all that stuff. Because I've been trying to wrap my head around, a lot of thoughts that people have on certain games and stuff, and I think I finally figured it out, and that is the fact that I think Sonic games are more about what they do rather than what they are. Now, before I get into all that, make sure obviously subscribe to your boy, support the content, all that jazz, but let's get right into it. Now, obviously a big part of this is social media, right? You start to see people's wild takes, about how, games like Unleashed that used to be, hated a lot, nowadays, is extremely beloved. We're seeing a lot of people that, show that they really love a lot of aspects of Sonic 06. We've seen people be like, Sonic and the Black Knight is one of their favorite Sonic games, despite it being, one of the least, the reception best ones out there in the market. And why is that? And let me explain to you why, right? When I say Sonic games are about what they do and not what they are, you're gonna understand what I mean. We're gonna be jumping around different titles here so I can explain my point. Let's start with Sonic Unleashed. This is an easy pick, right? A Sonic game that, has a lot of mixed reception, but over the years has sort of become beloved as one of the best Sonic games, right? Because despite, when it comes to Sonic, I feel like despite what flaws the game has, if I feel like it has an identity and has tried something unique and interesting, then the fans gravitate towards it insanely well. And you're gonna see that throughout this entire video, the different examples I give, you're gonna understand what I mean by that and why, everything sort of clicks. So with a game like Sonic Unleashed, right, the Werehog, right, obviously a big contingent point, it's a cool character, but a lot of its gameplay aspects, people don't like, people don't like collecting the medals in the game, but obviously, the big point of the game that people don't like is the Werehog, right? But why do people still adore this game and think it's phenomenal? Well, it's because it has ambition. Its 3D levels are some of the best in this series, and you can tell Sega cared, from the opening cutscene being phenomenal to a very heart-to-heart story, between Sonic and Chip, going on this grand world adventure, to Eggman's menacing plan, to the finale, like being this grand scale thing. It's like, despite whatever challenges or problems you had going through the game, when you got to the ending of that game, you're like, oh, fuck. Like, that was a journey, even me, like, I played that game where I frustrated the shit out of me, right? But when I beat that game, I felt something. I was like, oh, fuck, like, that really was a journey. That really was something worth it, and I loved so much about it. And that's just example number one. Take the Sonic Adventure games, for example, right? Games that, they haven't aged the best, right? But what people adore about them is what they do, which is they try, they have ambition. So despite, whenever I go back to those games and the Tails levels frustrate me, or the Knuckles levels can be a bitch, right? What I adore about them is, to me, when I think back at them, I'm like, they really tried, man. They had a full cast of characters here. They wanted you to treat every character, not necessarily as Sonic's equal, but someone you could say is your favorite, by giving them different character dynamics, different moments, different boss fights, and that's something that I really think a lot of people cherish and love, especially about the adventure games. It's just how much heart they had and what they did for the series, rather than what they are, which, at its core, you get a fun platformer, you get some frustrating third-person shooter levels, with the mech stuff, and then some annoying, exploration stuff, but again, still fun. Think about the storybook games, right? Sonic and the Secret Rings and the Sonic and the Black Knight are perfect examples of this, where they are games that reviewed really badly, in a lot of ways. And back in the day, during the Wii era, people were very frustrated by them. But why do fans look back at them so fondly? And it's because Sonic in that game is some of the best characterization of the character they've ever had. I feel like in that time, in those games, Secret Rings and Black Knight, Sonic's character is so fucking cool. His personality shines incredibly well in those games, and those games, despite their gameplay being super flawed, super repetitive, super frustrating with the Wii Remote in a lot of ways, right? What was dope about them is just how much they tried with ambition, right? And not only that, just cool areas. I mean, for all my issues with Sonic and the Secret Rings, right, I love how many cool areas you go to. You go from like a dinosaur area, you go to some like factories, you go to some, Aladdin-esque, building in the sky with lights towards the end of the game. Like, there's a lot of area differences, and obviously obviously in Black Knight, you get this crazy cool, scenery. You get these, kingdoms, you get these castles, you get these fiery locations. Like, everything about those games are cool. They are some of the coolest in the series. And that's why people fondly look back at them and fondly think about them despite their flaws. Because, man, those games have flaws. I'll tell you, man. Sonic and the Secret Rings is one of the games that has driven me the most insane. But when I get to a cutscene, right, and I hear Sonic, saying his dope-ass lines, you get to that game with that, the end of the game with that Eraser Jin cutscene, right, where he's the rawest motherfucker alive, or the super forms at the end of them when, Super Sonic, when he's in what's called, in Black Knight when he's got the gold armor, or what's called, Spine Sonic from Secret Rings or whatever. Like, it's like, when you saw how fucking cool those games were and what they were trying to do, you couldn't help but remember them fondly despite all their issues. But then take something like Sonic 4, right? Sonic 4 Episode 1 and 2 are games that are fine, actually. When you play them start to finish, they work. They work from start to finish. They're not really, like, they don't have glitches or anything. Like, you could have fun from start to finish, enjoy that game, play through it. But why do fans not think of them fondly, right? Because they didn't do anything unique, right? What they are is a simple Sonic game that kind of, dumbs down the formula a bit by having some of the physics issues. But because nothing really stands out about those games and you don't feel like the team was trying, that people just don't like them. They don't think about them. They're like, let's wipe Sonic 4 from our memories and minds. And I want to make a whole video about Sonic 4. Let me know if you want to see that. But yeah, that's like an example of a game where, it's not about what that game did. What it is kind of just like a game, and it exists. And I feel like that punishes Sonic games. I mean, look at Sonic Forces. I'm one of the people that thinks Sonic Forces is fine. And I will tell you, even objectively, Sonic Forces is fine. Like, as a game, you can play from start to finish. But again, when I come back to what I said, right, Sonic games are about what they do, not what they are, right? And what Sonic Forces did, right, is fuck up a lot of things for fans. They fucked up the boost formula in a lot of ways with some of the blandest level design in the series there, right? They had the most, fucked up story where they ruined it. This could have been one of the dopest story where, Eggman took over the world, but they ruined it, because bad writers on it and they rushed the game, and I think because of all these elements that the game ends up becoming, even though it is a fine game in the series, it end up being one of the most hated game in the series because of how much it sort of regressed and doesn't do anything ambitious or cool with this cast. Obviously, an iconic example of this is Sonic 06, Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, obviously, I don't want to get into the, the million conversations we've all heard about this game, but there's a reason why to this day people kind of fondly remember it in some ways, despite it being, one of the most flawed pieces of Sonic, things out there in the world, or even just one of the worst, games out there. It's because of what it tried to do, right? And what it tried to do was have a really fucking dope story, right? It tried to have a sick tone, right? I love the idea of playing as Sonic, Silver, and Shadow, having like a big three as the squad, and having them have very different gameplay styles and mechanics in there. And then you're having this story that's really deep. They're trying to intertwine stuff, right? But obviously, we all know how the game ended. I don't have to get into that, but why people remember it fondly is just because of what you think about that game. You think of the ambition it has. You think about the raw music. You think about the cool characters. Just a more serious story. Like, a lot of what those games attempted back then was fucking fire. And that's why you get stuff like Project 06, which make people love those games more, because once you get to play that game and it works very well, right? You get a game that, has dope level design, is an adventure game in concept, and then has a story that in a lot of ways is awesome, right? It's not complete. It's a little weird, with some of the story themes there, but it's fucking cool, and that's really what matters. I mean, look at the big difference between Sonic racing games and Sonic Riders games, right? Sonic racing games, I think, are superior just objectively gameplay-wise. In a lot of ways, they're just fun car races. They've got drift mechanics. They've got banger music. They've got great level design, but they don't really stand out because it's another kart racer, right? Whereas Sonic Riders, despite how flawed it could be, even, a game like Sonic Free Riders on the Kinect, it's so fucking cool. What it did was it gave style and energy to Sonic and the cast. So you got the cast on these hoverboards, despite how frustrating those games could be. I remember how insanely annoying Sonic Riders, the first one, is. You have to go to these gas stations to fill your gas. The rubber band AI is fucking brutal. It's like some of those games are really difficult and hard to get into, but man, the soul they have, what that game was trying to do, which, like I said, it's more about what Sonic is trying to do than what they end up being, right, is it tried to be unique. It tried to stand out. Instead of just being, hey, let's make another kart racer to rival Mario Kart, is, hey, let's do something, in the kart racing sphere, but give it that Sonic style that we all know and love. Look at a game like Sonic Mania, right? Sonic Mania at its core, is pretty simple for what it is. It's a modern 2D Sonic game that works and has great level design, right? But what did it do? And what it did was it's so fondly associated with like just the rejuvenation of 2D Sonic, right? It's so fondly remembered as, you know, Tyson Hess coming on board, you know, like having the fans work on a project together, having, you know, the past and the modern stuff come together in an old game like that. You know, that's how a game like Sonic Generations works. It feels like, you know, those games just felt like love letters to the fans. So even if they're not the most ambitious projects in the series, right, what they did was just feel like a proper love letter to, you know, the people that play these games and grow up with them. And then obviously you got games like the Sonic Boom games, right, where what they are, honestly, especially the 3DS ones, not the Wii U one. The Wii U ones are not just awful everywhere across the board. 3DS games that were like fine, it's like, okay, yeah, they're fine platformers, but like there's no Sonic soul in them, you know, and that's why what they tried to do was nothing. You know, that what they are these, you know, fine platformers, but what they tried to do was nothing. You could tell that was just a game made to be tied in, and there was no soul, there was no Sonic team love, and there was no spirit. I mean, that's a big reason why I don't like Sonic Lost World, right? It's like, yeah, the game itself is fine. What it is like a fine 3D platformer that works, but like, man, what it tried to do, I don't fucking know. Like, I don't know if you're trying to be Galaxy. I don't know if you're trying to be like, you know, this weird adventure game in like a 3D space. Well, I don't know why your story is like completely off. It's like what it tried to do is sort of like nothing almost, right? But what it ends up being is like a fine platform. But when it comes to Sonic, it is more about what they tried to do. And when they can get that perfect mix, it is wonderful. Just like our latest two entries we've gotten in the series, Sonic Frontiers, right? Oh my God. What it tried to do was something so fucking awesome, which is like, hey, remind me why I love this series. And they did it, right? They made Super Sonic the most rawest individual again, right? They gave us a story where they gave a fuck, right? They gave a fuck about the lore, the past, the world of Sonic. You know, they made me feel like, oh yeah, like this shit matters. You know, not everything is just, you know, the slapstick funny stuff they've been doing for a while. There is something, you know, worthwhile cherishing in this, right? And they tried with a comment, and it's like, to me, with Sonic Frontiers, it's a game where they tried to do so much, and I love it for it, despite how flawed it is, because what the game is at its core is what, you know, another open world game where you check out boxes, right? But what they tried to do, and that's what matters to me, man. They gave a fuck. What the game tried to do is way more important than what it is at the end of the day. A perfect example of this is the latest entry, you know, The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, right? What is that game, right? What it is a basic visual novel. There's no fail states, there's no nothing, right? But what it is a love letter to the fans, you know, fans that have loved the, you know, the side cast of Sonic characters for so long and haven't gotten a lot of shine for them, got shine. You know, when was the last time we got Vector having shine, Espio getting shine in there, a character even like Shadow, even Amy? It's like these characters just finally having like real full screen time entirely throughout the game, and it's about their personality shining and nothing else that stands out to people, right? And that's another reason and a big part of today's video of understanding what the secret sauce is with Sonic. It's about what they try to do and not what they are. And I think that sort of clicked with me recently and made me understand, like, oh yeah, like that's why I see, you know, people tweeting like, man, Sonic 06 is actually fire. You know, that's why some people say like the storybook games are some of their favorites. Shadow the Hedgehog is one of their favorites, right? Because it's cool, it's ambitious. If people feel like a Sonic game tries, then they give a fuck more than if a Sonic game doesn't really try but is fine. You know, and that's where you get stuff, you know, like your Lost Worlds, like your Sonic Booms. Look at a game like Sonic Runners, even like a mobile game, right? It's a mobile game. It's a basic forward, what's called 2D running game. But why that game stands out to people? Because it had style. It had a cool art style. It had dope music. It tried to maybe like stand out and feel unique and, you know, charming and have like, it was dope, man. And I think that stands out to fans, and I understand that now. You know, it took a while for that to click with me, but now that it has, I'm like, oh shit, this, you know, explains a lot. Now, obviously, I didn't cover every game in the series, but I just kind of want to give, you know, the bullet points and sort of mentally get you on track with what I'm trying to say, what a lot of people are trying to say, which is that's what Sonic is at its core. You know, it's about the series itself and what it does versus what the games are. You know, that's why no matter what the quality is, like how it ends up being, it really is about how much did the team, how much could you tell the team gave a fuck when making the game, despite how the thing ended up turning out. You know, even stuff like Sonic X, you know, or the Sonic movies were like, yeah, they have flaws and stuff, but man, like you could tell they gave a shit and they were trying something, and that's really what stands out the most of Sonic. So guys, let me know if you agree with this theory, if it makes sense to you, have I clicked something in your mind? Do you get it? What's your favorite example of something like that with a Sonic game where, you know, it's more about what it tried to do than what it is? And of course, I'll see you all next time. You're the best. Peace out. I love you. Whoa!